Let's start with my interview with Microsoft chief Satya Nadella. Well, in the year to June, Microsoft revenues from customers in Australia was $3 billion. Think about that. Cloud infrastructure that now underpins and services business and government. In fact, New South Wales is one of Microsoft's top 500 customers. Microsoft itself is now a $1 trillion business driven by Mr. Nadella's pivot into cloud services and his push on culture. It's been 3 years, I said, since his last trip to Australia. It comes just after Microsoft beat Amazon for the huge $10 billion defence contract from the Pentagon. I sat down with him at Microsoft offices in Canberra. Satya Nadella, congratulations on your Fortune Award Business Person of the Year, and welcome back to Australia.
No, thank you so much. It's great to be back.
Well, 3 years on, a lot more investment clearly in Australia, corporate and government. What are you up to in Australia, and what's your purpose? What underpins it all?
I mean, our core mission as a company is to empower people and organizations all over the world. And so when in Australia, to me, what's most important is to not really talk about our technology, but to really ensure that there's a lot of digital technology being created all around Australia, whether it's a small business using digital technology to become more productive, a large multinational in Australia becoming much more globally competitive because of their own digital capability, the public sector being efficient, health outcomes, education outcomes. So that's why I'm in Australia, to us, to see firsthand how some of our platforms and tools are useful in more Australians creating their own digital IP.
New South Wales, I think, is now one of your top 500 clients.
It's fascinating to see. In fact, there were two things that are just pretty amazing in terms of what New South Wales is doing. One is their pathology testing. They literally built an Azure Edge device for their caregivers to be able to do what is 61 odd million pathology tests more accurately, rendezvous all of that data, improve the health outcomes. And so that's fantastic to see. And then also just a couple of volunteers working with a lot of service organizations came together with a real passion to say, look, let's go after this homelessness challenge and really create the digital record for anyone who needs services so that there is proper sharing of identity and their requirements, and find homes for homelessness. And so to me, these are two fascinating examples of how technology can, in the hands of people, empower them to solve some of our most pressing challenges.
So we have just about got our heads around the cloud, I think. You're now talking about the edge, about tech intensity. Can you unpack that for us, and really how that is changing the way businesses think about their IT?
Yeah, if you sort of start with the premise that digital technology is going to be pervasive in our lives and in every industry, then every company and every institution has to measure their capability using this formula on tech intensity. And I would say there are three elements to it. One is, how quickly are you bringing world-class inputs so that you're not stuck recreating the wheel? For example, the cloud, to be able to get essentially on the new efficient frontier of compute, which is the cloud. And then the most important thing is for you to build your own capability, your own IP on top of it. But to do all of this with trust, because it's really the adoption rate times your capability to the power of trust is what we describe as tech intensity.
You mentioned that word trust. Now, you've just landed this $10 billion US contract with US Defence. What does JEDI deliver for defence, and what does it mean for Microsoft?
To us, what we have is a cloud platform that really helps, whether it is the Department of Health in New South Wales or the Department of Defense in the United States, or whether it is Priceline using it for really improving their own pharmacy. All of this is the same infrastructure. To us, we want to empower the world by building out that distributed computing cloud infrastructure.
But what's this done for the credibility of Microsoft, getting that sort of contract when everybody expected it would go to Amazon?
I mean, ultimately, it's really more about customers and their success that gives us the credibility. It's not any one contract and its award, but ultimately customers being successful on top of our tools and on top of our platforms. That's what we're focused on.
You live in this sector of disruption. What is your formula to stay relevant to what the world wants and the world needs? And could quantum supremacy, for example, from your competition in the US and China, change the game radically?
I mean, to us, we think that ultimately what is most important is for the world to have more technology capability to solve its pressing challenges, right? That, starting with equitable economic growth all over the world. I don't start with the premise that there's one company that is going to be super successful and there is not going to be broad success. I start with, if even there is a quantum computer, the real thing is, how is that quantum computer becoming democratized so that all the climate scientists in the world can come together and go solve the climate transition challenge or the food safety challenge. That's what's really the most important thing. It's not about any one company getting ahead on any one piece of technology. How quickly is technology itself being commoditized so that every company can be a digital tech company? That's our vision. It's not about a few companies on the West Coast of the United States or a few companies on the East Coast of China. It's about every company in every part of the world in their own right being successful using digital tech.
You and your president, Brad Smith, have been very interesting in this space about trust and regulation, relationship with the regulators. Microsoft is not in the crosshairs of regulators. There's no M in FANG. Facebook, Amazon, Google, they face potential breakups. How have you done this, Satya Nadella, and how should we hit refresh on this lack of trust that the world has with big tech broadly?
I mean, I think for us, when I think about trust is not something that you claim, it's something that you have to earn. And to us, it's about every day, what are we doing in order to ensure that there is trust in everything that we do, whether it's around cybersecurity, whether it's around privacy and treating it as a human right, or even ethics on AI. It starts with us as providers of platforms and tools, having design principles, having software engineering practices, and guidelines on what to use technology and what are the good uses of it and what are the bad uses, and enforce it. And then also welcome any regulation. After all, in our systems of government, we elect the legislatures as well as appoint regulators, and the legislatures appoint regulators in order to enforce, right? What would the world look like without food safety laws? I think the same is going to be true even in technology.
Satya Nadella, you've been very generous with your time. Thank you so much for joining me.
Thank you so much.